Peggy 16.
Death is like the winter chill. No door can keep it from us. And summer yet may bloom again, though ice be all upon us.
My child, there is so much to tell you, that I have run out of time. The sacrifice I made was not enough. The dark gods still feed on our transgressions. Corruption. Obsession. Deceit. Rage. You must face these demons.
It's hard to believe that the time is finally here. Total War Warhammer 3 is finally here. It's been so long with so much speculation that my mind has melted, and yet we just watched the actual announcement trailer for the freaking game. The trailer itself is intense, absolutely disgusting, yet also badass and culminating in unbelief. Yes, I'm looking at you, Cathay reveal. So in today's video, we'll go over the trailer, the Steam page information, and the FAQ, all provided to me in advance by Creative Assembly. I want to focus more on the story, the theme of the game as a whole, and what the info I've been given might mean, rather than go incredibly detailed into every single nook and cranny of every frame in the video. With things like unit lore and speculation in that regard, I'll leave to those channels who it suits better, and I'll take on the storytelling. Oh, and one last thing. Be on the lookout for another trailer remix on this channel, where I cheekily slap on the Beastie Boys' Sabotage into the second part of the trailer. It works uncannily well. With that out of the way, let's finally dive into what we know about Total War Warhammer 3. From the 4 teasers leading up to this announcement trailer, it's quite obvious that the end times are upon the world of Warhammer. The 4 chaos gods of Khorne, Tzeentch, Slaanesh, and Nurgle are seeking to push their influence into the world of mortals through both the minds of men, but also through the border between the realm of chaos and the world of Warhammer in the northernmost regions. Everything we've seen thus far points to a pretty grim scenario for those on the side of mortals, unlike what we have seen with the previous 2 games. With the map no doubt taking place mostly in the northern realms, the bitter cold of the trailer and even the harshness and forged feel of the Warhammer 3 logo, I fully expect the factions of Kislev and Cathay to feel relatively dark, dampened, and almost as if there's no hope. A game where only the strongest survive, simply to fight another day, and a definite harking back to something like the feel of Total War Attila. And indeed, that's how Creative Assembly seems to paint it on their Steam page. Far beyond the world and its petty wars, there exists a dimension of pure, malevolent magic, the realm of chaos. It's a terrible place, incomprehensible to the mortal mind. It whispers promises of power, but to behold it is to be seduced by it, to relinquish your soul to it, to become it. The four ruinous powers rule over this place, ever seeking to slip their bonds and engulf the world in a tide of demonic corruption. On the border between the worlds, two mighty kingdoms stand sentinel, the stern warriors of Kislev and the vast empire of Grand Cathay. But each is beset by its own trials, and now both have cause to cross the threshold and send their armies into the realm of chaos. The world stands on a precipice. A single push will plunge it into cataclysm. To think that we might see some very stark and cold, yet amazingly well-designed UI and game interactions for the two human factions, I'm honestly pretty excited to see how they pull it off. Those who've been around this channel know that I love the type of theme in Attila, and to have that overarching doom in the Warhammer world only heightens my hype. Flip that with the Chaos Lords, who all revel in some form of death and destruction, and while still grim and foreboding in a way, I am expecting a sort of twisted life to their factions. To them, it's not so cold and hopeless. They are the aggressors in this game. The Chaos Gods are wanting to overtake the world, and I hope that their factions reflect that desire, mixed in with their diseases, pleasures, bloodlust, and schemes. Equally as important to the thematic design of Warhammer 3 is the timeline. While Creative Assembly confirms in the FAQ that this game does not fall during the end times and will not feature stuff from the Age of Sigmar, it's all seemingly not entirely true. For the Warhammer 3 campaign, I fully believe that this technically takes place pre-Warhammer 2, but post or during Warhammer 1, and there are two decently big clues as to my thinking. And note, the timeline of Warhammer 3 does not make any sense whatsoever, but we'll also get to that. The first lies in Yuri Kovalenko, who I strongly believe is the man that attempts to stop Katerin from going into battle in the trailer. Yuri's story is an interesting one, in the lore having fought for Tsarina Katerin during the Storm of Chaos in 2521 to 2522. He was at the Battle of Mazhorod, where he took an arcane jewel clutched in the hands of a dying Chaos champion. That Chaos arcane magic eventually causes a clawed hand mutation and is actively turning Yuri into a beast, and in the current lore he lives far away and alone to keep his shame a secret. However, in the trailer we see a very healthy and seemingly untainted Yuri, and fighting for Katerin the Princess, not the Tsarina. The title of Katerin is confirmed in the beginning with what must be her father's words in the first letter, implying that since he's alive, he must be king. Then, in the letter from Katerina to Yuri towards the end of the trailer. The two seem very close, with Katerin trusting him entirely to do what must be done to keep the demons at bay as Katerin herself secures her own throne. So this trailer and seemingly the entire game takes place both before and after the Storm of Chaos. Archaon's defeat is during or post Warhammer 1, which Yuri actively takes part in, but with Katerin's father still alive, it has to also occur before the Storms of Chaos. This first clue is a bit of a long shot in the argument, which is why I left mine ace in the hole for the second big clue. The end of the trailer features a very well-known character, our narrator and advisor from Warhammer 1 and 2. The graphics have greatly improved since we last saw him, but there's a very noticeable difference in his appearance than what we are used to seeing, and that pun is greatly intended. We see a very healthy, almost young, and both eyes intact advisor. This is not the feeble man we once knew, bent and broken, hobbling along with a staff, both eyes plucked out of him. The advisor in this trailer is absolutely not that man, at least not yet. So, unless the Chaos Gods have changed his appearance, or have given him revitalized life, which doesn't sound like either case. Warhammer 3's timeline has to take place during or just post Warhammer 1 before his abuse from the gods started. As mentioned, time does not truly matter with these Warhammer games, since there are no seasons, heroes do not die, etc, etc. But it's still interesting that the third installation of a game series would actually take place theoretically before its predecessor. What does this ultimately mean? Probably nothing at all. Each game's campaign can be taken 100% in its own time period, but with the series complete, the Mortal Empire's campaign might get a little bit wonky with the time mashups. But from a personal standpoint, analyzing the trailer, it's just cool that we can kind of figure out when this game might be taking place. We've established the theme and possibly, sort of maybe, nailed down the timeline of Warhammer 3, but what about the story? We don't get the full story just from the trailer, but from the Steam page info and the trailer combined. And there are lots of moving parts in this game, lots of stories to flesh out just for release. The Chaos Gods seem to have the largest and most grandeur part to play thus far. There is no denying that all four of the brothers are at extreme odds with each other and seek to, in some form, be the most loved, the most dominating, and highest god of the others. Their story seems to take place initially in the realms of chaos. How this will be pulled off, I have no remote clue. Is it possible that they will have to fight amongst themselves on an entirely different map before pouring through whatever type of void to get to the mortal realm? What will each god's purpose serve and to what end? Total Domination seems like a map painter simulator, but surely each god will have something a bit more in depth with their progression that goes a level beyond simple conquest. Rivalries are to be had as well, mentioned in my third teaser video. Will there be some sort of mechanic to push that rivalry into a story-driven mechanic? As Nurgle, will I use my influence of death and plagues to, unravel the schemes of Tzeentch? I foresee something similar to the Vortex campaign in this regard. Something triggers, and you as that rival seek to stop it, in order to push your own influence out into the world faster and more significantly. I cannot wait to find out more on what the Chaos Gods get to do in the game from a story perspective. Then there's Kislev. As just dropped in the last section, Katarin's princess state and letter to Yuri imply that her potential as queen is in jeopardy. Dukes, or rather boyars in this game, are a huge pain in the neck for Katarin in the lore, where she struggles to maintain their willingness to obey the laws laid down in the realm. Will Katarin's story entail a quest for Kislev unification, while at the same time juggling the forces of chaos? Does Katarin struggle in her own mind against the forces of chaos, and will there be a choice to bend the knee to the overwhelming evil? Is there a chance that Yuri is playable and or crucial to the campaign, and is he tainted? The struggle of seeing someone close to you succumb to the very forces you daily fight against would indeed create a great deal of strife in your campaign as Katarin, not to mention potentially cause such a close ally to fall and screw with your goals of attaining security with the crown. There's one more piece to this story that isn't dropped in the trailer but rather on the Steam page, and it hits at someone, or rather something, that wants to usurp it all, go against the greater Chaos Gods, though they'll need a champion. There's only one being that fits the description, and it is none other than Be'lakor, the first demon prince of chaos. Once favored by the Chaos Gods, he eventually grew so corrupt as to challenge the gods themselves and was eventually struck down by Tzeentch himself. His punishment was to be seeking a new Ever-Chosen for eternity, with many attempts to either take over the body of said Ever-Chosen or use them in a way that sets himself free to take on the gods again. His plans always fail, but perhaps there's something to be said in the narrative story of this Prince of Chaos that would allow him to truly become set free. While he might not be playable, it's possible that all factions will be able to contribute to Be'lakor's story in some fashion or another. Nothing of that is confirmed. There is of course one faction I've left out, Cathay. Believe me when I say I have no clue as to what Cathay's story is, but there's the implication that they, much like Kislev, have trouble both inside their own realm and in fighting chaos in the north, so there is that. Remember when I said that Creative Assembly wasn't being completely truthful about not being set in the end times or using Age of Sigmar? Here's what I meant. Total War Warhammer 3, as I see it, will be the first time that we get to see the manifestation of the gods in their true forms. Well, sort of. It can be taken two ways. The 4 Chaos gods in the trailer are indeed the gods themselves in their various true forms. Or, it is very lore-friendly to think that the 4 creatures we see are greater Chaos demons, which are known to take the form of their gods. Greater Chaos demons still exert a great deal of influence in the world, led by their own Chaos god. This would fall in line with the idea that no one could ever truly see the Chaos gods, and that the demons are the closest we'll ever get. True Chaos gods or not, we see our first look into the Age of Sigmar with the representation of Nurgle and the Great Unclean One, and lordy is he one disgusting brute. Slaanesh is also AOS represented with the Keeper of Secrets unit. That goat-like face is hands down an exact match, with nothing close to it represented in the traditional Warhammer Fantasy battles. We see several units combine the 8th edition and Age of Sigmar, so what gives? Well, to me it's pretty simple and will no doubt be made even more clear when Creative Assembly releases more information on rosters, especially with Slaanesh's roster. Pretty much any edition that's not the Age of Sigmar contains a massive amount of scantily clad units, and it's not necessarily restricted just to females. In order to keep this game available to the youngest common denominator, you have to have some way to represent what's basically a sex cult roster in a rather PG format, if you get my meaning. Not to mention the fact that, let's face it, so many of the Age of Sigmar units are just more badass looking than their previous edition counterparts. I mean, did you see that Bloodthirster in the trailer? Here's his old model to compare. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Age of Sigmar version 2. So while Creative Assembly is correct in that the game does not actually take place during the end times or the Age of Sigmar, there's no doubt that they will heavily use unit models and take inspiration from these time periods. Cannot blame them, and I'm actually pretty excited that they are taking this route. They are truly thinking of the irresponsible parents who let their young kids play such a game. These last couple of sections I'll keep purposefully short simply because I've gone far beyond what I initially thought I would with this video, but they are things that I want to mention. Factions wise, this is the most we've seen confirmed for release. 6 factions. Yes, 6 of them. That means the mono god system is going to be in place, where each of the 4 gods gets its own faction with unique units. Although I fully expect that there to be some sort of crossover between the unit rosters just for balance and playability. This also means that, confirmed in the FAQ page, Kislev and Cathay will be 100% playable on release and are not pre-order bonus factions. That means that there is still the pre-order bonus faction. And before you even think about it, I, honest to God, 100% do not know what that is. Even anyone in the partner program has zero clue. We will also get 9 legendary lords across those 6 factions, with my bet seeing at least Cathay and Kislev each getting 2, simply because they are in the minority and because of Yuri, as I mentioned earlier. I'm incredibly excited to see what variety we'll get with so many factions right off the bat. Replayability is huge with Total War games, and especially with the Warhammer series. To see 7 factions with the pre-order race pack just truly shows the scale that Total War wants to establish from day one. This last section is more technical, but contains what could be the most helpful information regarding the purchase of Warhammer 3. The good news is that Warhammer 3 will see both multi-platform and multi-store releases. Multi-platform on Mac OS and Linux will be as close to release as possible thanks to Feral Interactive, so rejoice all you non-PC people. In regards to multi-store, Total War Warhammer 3 will release on both Steam and Epic Games, with the option to purchase either of those keys directly from Creative Assembly on Creative Assembly's own website. Purchasing on their website allows Creative Assembly more money, it goes directly to them, so in my opinion, that's just a no-brainer. What's probably the best part about this is that for those multiplayer happy people, there is confirmed cross-store multiplayer experience that will be available at launch, which just from a logistical standpoint is a huge victory from day one. There are some stipulations you'll need to be aware of. CA is working to get all previous Warhammer games onto the Epic Store to allow anyone purchasing Warhammer 3 to play Mortal Empires or to play with their friends on that store. Games and DLC are not cross-store compatible, so if you have any games or DLC on Steam, they won't unlock on the Epic Store. This is a bit of a pain, but Creative Assembly has stated in the FAQ that they are actively looking into figuring out how, through Total War Access, to somehow connect your Epic and Steam accounts to play on whatever platform you want, which is another potential huge victory for the future of the franchise. It's at this point where I wrap up this video on the announcement trailer for Warhammer 3. I still cannot believe that I am actually talking about this game in the context of actual coverage. I'm incredibly excited to be here, and it's because of people watching like yourselves that I am in the position to be able to cover it in this manner. Thank you all for watching this. Let me know your thoughts on everything in the comment section below. If you enjoyed it, like the video and sub to the channel, as there is guaranteed to be more content on Warhammer 3 once CA dishes out more. Nerd out, it's perfectly okay. I'm nerding out too. This is Havoc, guys. May Sigmar protect us all. I'll see you in the next video.